Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Techie Tuesdays, and in this video we're going to be looking at three different types of remote access trojans or remote access tools. These are malware samples found in the wild. I'm going to be using MalwareBazaar. I'm going to be showing you how to properly dissect these threats using SentinelOne. We'll likely see static and dynamic detections, especially if there's the file hashes have been detected before and they've been appended to the blacklist. We're also going to be diving into different behaviors that is seen on these remote access trojans. We're likely going to see some like Node.js instances on Task Manager for persistence. So the different rats that we're going to be walking through are, in fact, WarzoneRAT, which they actually have their own public website up where you can openly buy the remote access Trojan. It's not like a private tool; anyone can get it. Gh0stRAT, which the source code is also public. I'm just using the MITRE attack website because I find it has a better description of the different techniques that are used. And QuasarRAT, which is also open source. So all of these remote access Trojans are open source, and these are commonly exploited in the wild, which is a scary thought. However, if you have good enough detection and you have the protection in place, then you should be fine. So my current group, Daniel Demo group, is on Detect. But what I'll be doing is I'll actually be showing you what it would look like if you were to quarantine the device during Protect with network quarantine enabled. And with network quarantine enabled, it actually restricts my test VM from communicating with any other network connections besides the connections to the management console, which means you still have access to it whether it's quarantined or not. So I'll quickly go into Sentinels and policy, and you can see the policy that I have here. So I'm going to detect. All of the detection engines are enabled. I've got all deep visibility, telemetry, data collection. And yes, so we will be moving into our VM here. So this is just the standard Windows 10 VM. And I'm on MalwareBazaar, and I searched up tag:/rat just to find any sort of rats. And so Ave Maria rat is actually the WarzoneRAT, but it's just associated with the name. And you can see this one's task. This will be Linux. What we're going to do is we're going to try and find here we go. This is a Windows Ave Maria rat. And let's see if we can download this. So sometimes the rats won't actually run properly, and it will say like your Windows or this application isn't compatible with your device. That's either because it might be like an old Windows 7 rat, or sometimes you might be missing certain dependencies. Like I know with some Rust malware, you actually need C++. And if you don't have C++ installed, sometimes it just can't run. But that's usually to do with the malware developers themselves being incompetent. So we're going to download this malware now, and I'll use 7-zip to open it up. Let's have a look. What's the date today? As you can see, I've been downloading and testing a bunch of different malware recently, mainly in preparation for this video. And you can see there is quite an awkward picture on here. File description: sulkiness. Company counterpoises. This is interesting. Right, so before we run this, I've noticed that SentinelOne hasn't picked this up as a static detection yet, which I think is very interesting. So you've actually written to this on the disk after decrypting it from the zip file. This is very interesting. I wonder if it's been signed. Doesn't look like it's been signed. Interesting. I've never seen this icon before. So what we're going to do, we're actually just going to run it, see what happens. Before we run it, though, I want to see the different attributes that were on the. Okay, so it's only exe and rat, so it's not like it doesn't say, it's not confirmed that it will drop like a JS instance, which some malware do. I know Crackbot, that remote access Trojan, they drop like a Node.js instance, but sometimes they don't use process following, so it's really easy to spot in Task Manager. So we'll run this now. Let's see what happens. Yes. So you saw for a split second there was a command panel showing up. That is another fault of the malware developers. You shouldn't have been able to see that. It should have been hidden completely. Let's go into Task Manager, and you can see that SentinelOne already picked it up in the bottom right with that notification. I just want to see if there's any sort of process running that's just blatantly obvious. It could be using process hollowing, because I know it's definitely capable of that. Whatever whatever Gh0stRAT is, that's probably what it is. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's been spotted anywhere. So let's go into the SentinelOne Management Console. Let's go to Incidents. You can see that that my endpoint is actually infected with the red. So let's open this up, and it's dynamic detection. So the file hash hasn't been detected before. I'm currently using VirusTotal threat enrichment, and you can. So this is unrelated to SentinelOne themselves. This is simply just checking the file hash on VirusTotal for you. However, SentinelOne has a built-in button to press to go to VirusTotal, and you can already see that the community score is quite low, and you can see the little icon up there. You can see it matches a lot of Sigma rules, a lot of IDS rules. It's already been flagged as malicious in some sandboxes. I'm going to give it a negative community score because it definitely looks malicious to me. And you can see Joe Security, any run, they're all flagging it as extremely malicious. Let's head back into SentinelOne. So let's go to the threat details and quickly zoom in on this. Let's go to threat indicators, and it is causing so much noise in terms of the MITRE ATT&CK behaviors. So each one of these behaviors are well segmented by the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and these are all sort of behaviors that you can all match together to create to match up with like threat intelligence feeds, like with VirusTotal or Intezer, and you can actually correlate this with certain threat groups. So let's go into Explore and see what processes it's creating. And you can see there's some network actions going to a particular IP. So this is the command and control server that they've obviously enabled. And it's if you go into SentinelOne's storyline and you find something like conhost, you'll likely see that's where it will that's where the command and control server connection comes from. But it was simply dropped by the XHT gu.exe, which is what we can see in right there, which is they could have used process hollowing for this. So it's slightly embarrassing. It's very easy to spot this, but I'm sure many people wouldn't be able to get into Task Manager and find this out themselves. That's why it's important to have like a very good EDR solution like SentinelOne. So what we're going to do, we're actually going to mitigate these threats. So I'm going to select the threat up here, press Threat Actions, Mitigation Action. I'm going to do all the way to remediate. I don't need to do rollback because it hasn't encrypted any files, and I'm not worried about the registry changes or anything like that because I'm on a VM, and I'm not too worried about doing a rollback using the VSS snapshots, which is what SentinelOne uses. So I'm going to mark as resolved, true positive, and press Apply. And there you go. The process is deleted and the file was quarantined, which is where I was here. So let's move on to the next piece. So we have the Gh0stRAT malware. I'm going to close down the VirusTotal. Let's find Gh0stRAT. So it simply just says it's been uploaded by the admins of MalwareBazaar, and doesn't say that it's on PowerShare or anything. It's simply just an exe. So before we download it, let's go into the MITRE ATT&CK framework website, and you can see the different techniques. It's making a lot of noise. It's using keyloggers, has the capability to delete files, event logs. So it actually encrypts the C2 traffic using RC4 and XOR. Has encrypted TCP communications to evade detections. Can run DLLs into memory. Can capture the victim's screens remotely. you could possibly open up to like some social extortion stuff. It's quite scary. And here's the different threat groups that actually use this software, and this is what I find the most interesting. So if you were to zoom in on one of these threat groups, the APT41, I believe that, okay, so APT42 was the Iranian one, APT41 is the Chinese state-sponsored one. And you can see the different techniques that they're likely to use similarly to the software themselves, but rather the group in general, because they use multiple pieces of software. And I think that's really, really interesting how even the world's most talented hackers doing nefarious things are using open source software. It's simply how they deliver that payload. So what we do, we'll head back onto VM and download this malware sample. Go into 7-zip. And let's open this up. And these weird icons are, I find quite interesting. So already SentinelOne has picked this up as a static threat. I'm interested to see why it's picked up as a static threat. So you won't see any indicators on a static threat behavior-wise because it's not going through the dynamic engine. It's going through the on-write static. So let's view some virus total first. And yeah, this is almost every vendor has detected this. Besides for a few. So into community, Joe Sandbox, 100%. VM-Ray already picked it up as malicious, so it's definitely malicious. Let's go into threat details. Let's see what SentinelOne have to say about it. So no specific threat indicators themselves, but SentinelOne has deemed it as malicious anyway, so you definitely want to have this off of your system and do not run it. However, I'm in a test environment, so I'm okay with it. And I'm going to open this up now. I'm going to have a look at the dynamic detection that SentinelOne has. And I can't see any command prompts showing up, command panels. Perhaps it's been hidden somewhere. Can't find anything on Task Manager. Maybe it could be this process, I'm not too sure. Let's go back onto SentinelOne and have a look at this dynamic detection. So you can see there's now 2 threats, and if I were to ungroup them by hash, you'd see there'll be this threat which is dynamic and this threat which is static. This is because I ran it this time. Let's go into threat details now, and let's go into threat indicators. It simply says it's detected by the static engine, so it could just be a repeat telling me to panic pretty much. Right, so I think that's interesting. So the indicators are only that they've been detected in a static engine. This is almost like a knock-on effect from running something that's already confirmed as malicious. So what we're going to do, I'm going to group the hashes again. I'm going to select both of them, which is when they're grouped by a hash, and then you simply click to the left. Press threat actions, mitigation action, remediate, markers resolve, true positive, and press apply. So if you were to, let's say, quickly go back into policies on Sentinel policy, if you had malicious threats or suspicious threats on protect and you had disconnect from network on containment, that would network quarantine the device, or network quarantine the endpoint. And way to do this manually is that it would, if you were to go to quarantine network, or disconnect from network. So disconnect from network, this will quarantine the device on your network and only allow it to communicate with the management console. So yeah, what we're going to do, we've had that mitigated, and that is a way of sort of disconnecting your device from the network in case you have a malware running. And this will also do static detections, even if you haven't run something and it's picked up something using the static malware on write or on read. on write specifically. It won't. It will still contain the device just in case anyone were to try to run it. And now a use case for using network quarantine would be in cases of like lateral movement. So the WannaCry malware used SMB I think it's SMB share exploits and vulnerabilities to pretty much completely destroy a British healthcare system, and it caused a lot of havoc. So using something like network quarantine can be very important. However, you will need to manually unquarantine each of the devices if it happens automatically. But if it gets to that point where they do get quarantined, then they're probably, the SentinelOne has probably zapped it up anyway if you're in Protect. And we'll do one more piece of malware. Let's go back onto MalwareBazaar. And this time I'm actually going to edit this policy quickly. I'm going to go over to protect and show you the disconnect from network on containment. Press save changes. This will just apply it to these two endpoints here. So I'm only on this endpoint at the moment. Let's go back into incidents and let's have a look. So we need to do QuasarRAT. So Quasar is very, very common. It's on GitHub. It's not being maintained too often. There's probably a few forks of it somewhere. The latest release was two years ago, 2.5 years ago. But it's still going to be maintained by certain people, and people are still going to be using it. So let's see if we can find a QuasarRAT. Right, I might as well search it up then. And here we go. So sometimes it's PowerShell, sometimes it's with an exe. Just for novelty's sake, we'll use the PowerShell one because we've done 2 exes so far. We'll download this. And we'll open it up with 7-zip. And SentinelOne hasn't picked up straight away with static detection, probably because it's a PowerShell script. So if you were to open this, it would likely be a dynamic detection using the interactive session engine. So we'll run this now, see what happens. I've opened up in Notepad. You can already listen. So this is really cool. So I accidentally opened up a Notepad, and you can already see that the C2 server's here, and it's trying to see what it's trying to do. So it's trying to pull down this doc file, which is very, very interesting. It's trying to write to program data. Write file to disk to evade sandbox detection. That's really cool. Yeah, and you can see it as a obfuscated PowerShell command. Wow. They really put some effort into obfuscating their PowerShell scripts. Yeah, this is, wow. There is a lot here. I'll be interested to see if this even works, to be honest, because this is some serious obfuscation. Let's run it then. We might as well. Run with PowerShell. I'm very excited to see this. Seems we have some Chinese file that shows up. No, I don't speak Chinese personally myself, so I don't understand what this is trying to tell me. But I think that's quite cool. Are there any links on here? Are these clickable? Oh. So SentinelOne have picked it up as malicious already because of my the policies. I really want to see why it detected it using a dynamic detection, because it wasn't detected by cloud. using file hashes. That was a very interesting piece of malware. It wasn't simply just an exe trying to do create a sub-process and gain persistence. It was multiple things put sort of stacked on top of each other. So yeah, it was detected as suspicious, which I think's really interesting. It's the command line arguments. So yeah, it was detected by the document and scripts engine actually instead. So that document that was dropped was detected as malicious. So let's go into threat details. Wow. Yep, so obfuscate PowerShell command, indirect commands were detected. Users process following is pretty standard. User logged on. PowerShell execution policy was changed. That's a common sort of privilege escalation technique that is used in the wild and in pen testing. Let's go into explore and see how much of a mess it's caused. Keeps going. Wow. So you can see this is quite the piece of malware that they have here. This doesn't look like it was a standard piece of QuasarRAT, because I'm not sure if it doesn't say anything about dropping like Chinese documents. But you can see that this is what simply running that PowerShell script did. It went through all of this. I'm not sure if it will show you the actual obfuscated PowerShell commands. Looks like it actually. Okay, so I'm glad that I ran this on detect. I wonder if the device is so the network status is disconnected. So it probably tried to connect to that C2 IP that we saw in the actual PowerShell script itself. But obviously, because it was network quarantine, it didn't connect to that C2 server, and we safely have automatically mitigated and remediated the threat. And if you go back, it's all gone. There's no issues whatsoever. You can still see the file here, but this is because it's in an encrypted zip file. And the rest of these are just from old threat testing. You can see it can't find script files, so Windows script host, that's probably what it was trying to utilize, using lol bins, live off the land binaries. And that's pretty much it. So we ran through some very interesting malware today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. This will be for Techie Tuesdays this week. And if you're celebrating it, I wish you a very Merry Christmas. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Thank you very much.